Me, the 5 degrees difference of tilt of your camera from this week versus last week makes it look like you're in a completely different place, but I know exactly where it is, and I know it's the same exact spot as always.
Absolutely. It's like
Yeah.
just by having it slightly more under my chin and up the nose, I look like a different person. It takes off some of the Disney villainness and makes me seem like a Disney side character. And we are live here to chat about all of the TV that we've watched the last couple of weeks, but that's kind of a lie. We're really just here to talk about Bridgerton. Like I've got a whole notes thing, I've got agenda, I've got news. We're gonna go through all the things, woman of the week, whatever. But like between you and me, we are just here to talk about Bridgerton season 3, the first half of Penelope's season, not Penelope and Colin's season. Spoilers, we hate him. Well, me, I hate him. We're gonna find out what Kate and Carey think actually, because we have some different perspectives here. We've got the full gamut covered, and by the full gamut covered, I mean we have the only opinions that I want to hear, which are Kate and Carey's, and anybody in the chat watching live. I do want to hear your thoughts. Stormy, I already see is in the chat. Stormy, I definitely want to hear your thoughts on season 3 of Bridgerton if you've given it a watch. If not, we will be talking spoilers. However, it is only the first half of season 3 that's out so far, so it's not really spoilers. And also, it's based on a book. So is it really spoilers? No. Okay, Kate, Carey, what news do you bring me tonight?
I bring the news that the show that's a book adaptation I talked about months ago, My Lady Jane, has a
Yeah.
trailer that's dropped, and it will be on Prime Video in June. It looks amazing. It doesn't look similar at all to the books, but it looks great nonetheless, and I am excited about it. And then we also have teases that we will have season 3 information about Legends of Vox Machina at some point, and it should be released at some point this year. We'll see if that actually happens.
So exciting. I know I will have to catch myself back up on where we left off with Vox Machina, but I do have an expert in the room yourself for that, so very excited about that. Carrie, what do you bring?
I bring not hard hitting news because I'll be honest, I do not remember or recall like when it's supposed to premiere, right? But Only Murders in the Building season 3 question mark is obviously going to be out in Hollywood, LA, that sort of thing. And I don't ever recall or remember any sort of property that says, "Hey, let's go Hollywood," and meaning it in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding out hope that they are able to pull the season off, but I just don't know. Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. Um, and what was my other bit of news? Agatha Harkness, the Coven of Chaos, the Darkhold Diaries, insert name here, is still happening and it's still a thing and it's supposed to be this fall. And quite honestly, until I saw a trailer about it or this whole social media brouhaha over the name, I almost forgot that it was still a thing. I guess that maybe they did it on purpose. Maybe they said, hey, people are going to go back and need to watch WandaVision to reacquaint themselves with what this series is supposed to be about. But long story short, it's supposed to be coming this fall in September, if I'm not mistaken. I'm interested and excited to see it, but I'll be quite honest, I'll probably have to brush up on WandaVision to make sure I can make sense of what this series is supposed to be.
There's never a bad time to rewatch WandaVision. And especially with, I feel like we're back in terms of getting TV delivered to us, but there's a bit of a lack of like good scripted TV right now? Question mark. Maybe that's just my perspective. Feel free to fight me in the comments down below. So having something worth a rewatch is great. And if anything's worth a rewatch, it's WandaVision. I will also say if any show can pull off the like go to Hollywood thing, it's going to be Only Murders in the Building. And it does sound like they're taking some of their, season 2 favorites, Meryl Streep, etc., might be back. I think I heard rumors of. So exciting. That shows one of our like bread and butter shows. So I really need it to either be good or be terrible and worth talking about. The one other thing that I will mention, and I don't think anybody could have possibly missed seeing it, was Knives Out 3 has been announced. Dead Man Rising. So it seems vaguely piratey themed. Not really sure what's going on there. And some casting news has been coming out. Constant stream of casting news. I've seen, honestly, the one that I remember, just because I think it's the most recent one I saw, was Kerry Washington is rumored to be cast in it, but there's been just an all-star cast list beyond that as well of either people confirmed to be in it or people rumored to be in it. I'm sure everybody in the entire world is trying to get on that franchise if they can, despite Glass Onion kind of being... I loved it, but I think it got hot and cold reviews. As you know, the first one got like universally beloved reviews. So we'll see what they do with 3. I have high hopes, but I've loved both Knives Out and Glass Onion so far. So I am easy to please on the cheesy murder mystery front.
In a fantasy world, we'd get a Knives Out, Only Murders in the Building crossover somehow of some sort to find out they were in the same universe.
That'd be so cute. Anything in the like, it's a murder mystery, but we're still having fun. You've got me. Like, I'm sold. Like, I'll suspend disbelief. I'll, tolerate cheese. I'll whatever. Speaking of suspending disbelief, speaking of tolerating cheese, speaking of lending grace to directional choices, let's tap the mic and step up and talk about Bridgerton season 3. However, we also have to note that we also have a member here who has watched seasons 1 and 2 and 3 all within the last week. So everything's fair game. We can talk about them all together. In the chat, I'm already seeing some positivity. Stormy says, I love Colin and Penelope. I love Colin and Penelope is my queen. So there's already, we're off to a positive start. Kate and Carey, do you want to keep the good times rolling or do you want to take it down a negative track? Tell me your thoughts on season 3 of Bridgerton.
I kind of want to hear Carrie's first because I don't want to sway him. I want to hear your honest opinions, Carrie.
Dear reader, Carey has watched seasons 1, 2, and 3, or at least portions thereof, all within the last week. It's fresher on nobody's mind more than yours.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Quite honestly, in totality, it's been a lot. It's been much. But let's talk about season 3 and what I absolutely really dig about it. I will be honest. I do like the relationship of Penelope and Colin. I did not think going into the season that I would. And so what I don't know is how much time sort of passes by in quote unquote our real world or in the world of the show between seasons. I'm guessing in the show it's only 1 year. But like Colin seemed to have gotten a significant glow up between season 2 and season 3. Sort
Well,
of
he got a
went to
spray
like he went to like the leading man gym or whatever it was, and so him coming into the season, I was like, okay, all right, I can see what they're trying to do here, and I can see how they want this to work. And so I am actually surprisingly a fan of their relationship, seeing it executed when I did not think that I would be going into it. There are some issues and nitpicks that I have with it to some degree, but I think it's fun and it feels natural and it's sort of like, hey, this seems like where they should be ending up. But what's really interesting is to see that it is quote unquote sort of like the mid-season finale. So we can only suspect that there will be swerves and roller coaster rides from here to the end. But to answer your question long-windedly, I dig it.
Love that. Okay, so one of the things that's standing out to me is you mentioned, this glow up that they gave Colin, which is the glow up that they've been giving their, either leading ladies, leading man, whatever, over the course of the last few seasons. It worked for you. Like you saw it and you were like, okay, like I recognize Colin as the leading man. Kate, did you have the same response to that? And I'm not talking about the like intentional cringiness of Colin like flirting with the girls, where we as
Mhm.
the audience are supposed to be like, this is so fake, but just like how he's portrayed as a person, maybe in scenes with Penelope.
On the very aesthetics perspective, I think Carrie points out really something funny about Bridgerton, about how there is the major glow up before the
Yeah.
season. There's something that I don't know why they do something so drastic with the sideburns, but the sideburns get so much attention. Like it's so much. Um, to be honest, I think he looks 10 times better in his interviews than in the show. I think it's overly coiffed, but that's a personal take. I think how they have gone about presenting him as a character in the show is interesting in that it does kind of reflect what the book does, but they're trying to show him as the multifaceted, and he's gotten world wise or whatever. But there is something to be said about they're saying one thing but showing you something different.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I'm supposed to feel like they're saying one thing but showing something different, or if it's a reflection on the actual quality of the script. And I can't decide, but that's like the big takeaway about how I feel about Colin, honestly,
Mhm.
is the he follows into the consistent thing of the guys are complaining and just whining about the young ladies who are looking for a husband, and the mamas trying to set things up. But then he comes back and is flirting with every single person with a pulse. And
Mhm.
I he still is the one complaining about that, but that's really contradictory. And then he is oblivious to Penelope, but then also wants her as a friend. And there is a lot of cognitive dissonance between him as a character and the writing of his character that really kind of clogs the works for me of liking him. I don't despise him, but he's very confusing and hard to root for.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the I don't despise him either. And honestly, I don't even despise Colin and Penelope as a couple. I just find myself, it's very much like a parent. I'm like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. You know, like I I want Penelope to be with somebody who's at least liked her the whole time. Why does Penelope need to be the one to settle for the person who said that he wasn't attracted to her and he wasn't going to date her? And in the books, we'll just call it what it was. So in the show, you see the end of episode 1, she has a bit of a glow up, right? She changes the clothes color that she's wearing, she changes her hairstyle, she has all of that. Previously, they had to basically take great pains to make her look like dowdy and kind of ill-fitting in the environment, because Nicola is a absolutely drop dead gorgeous woman, right? And then they give her the glow up and suddenly the clothes fit her better and the colors are more flattering and her hair is, gorgeous, whatever type thing. In the books, her glow up is a little more difficult. It's not something they could probably do on the show, at least certainly not in 2024. She actually loses weight. She in the books becomes skinny, and that's the entire impetus of her whole glow up. And I don't think the audience would receive that well, and I don't think I would receive that well. So I'm happy with the direction that they chose. But nonetheless, we're left with a situation where even in the show, Colin was saying, oh, I would never date my friend Penelope. And then what? She changes from wearing yellow to wearing a lovely
Yes.
green. And he's like, oh, maybe I would. Like, it just makes him seem so shallow and hard to root for. I'll set aside the like kind of juvenileness of like he's pretending to be a player and like worldly and world wise and whatever, because like he went on a summer trip to Europe. Okay, join the, like
Mhm.
shocking. But it's the like he's still ultimately shallow, right?
Yeah. Well, and like the him coming back world wise and like, playing that up, that I can let go of. It's the he can't pick a side on it. That's frustrating. But with your comment about the kind of makeover for Penelope, I am glad that they chose it's just more of a color choice pick and maybe flattering cuts and that kind of shift.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a matter of changing your appearance, changing who you are to fit the more like the quota. Because it's not it's not just the outfits.
Yeah.
She goes out of her way to change who she is and
Mhm.
who she perceived to be. And it is basically through his handiwork that she now fits in the mold that he finds desirable.
And maybe
But
that's
then,
intentional, right? Maybe they're trying to
yeah.
say, like, just because you changed your outside doesn't mean society will accept you. That's kind of that
Mhm.
heartbroken thing that she has when right before she asks him to kiss her, where she's gone through the ringer of like changing her outside and kind of acting different and whatever, and getting treated a little better, but still ultimately being reminded that society sees her as an outsider because it's not about her appearance. It's also because she's not fitting their mold and she's not playing their role and she's not, doing what she's not being the Cressida, right? Cressida is the pinnacle of performing. Penelope does not do that same performance and has not consistently done it. And we see Colin also doing a bit of a performance as well. And he's more easily accepted than she is, whether it's because he's a Bridgerton, because he's a man, because he's wealthier, because he's from a less, chaotic family, whatever the case may be. It's a little easier for him, but both him and Penelope are doing this performance. And I think maybe for me, I see that parallel, but I'm not responding to that parallel. I would respond better maybe if they were friends and we're seeing like two friends learn that there's two different types of performance they're doing, kind of how we see Penelope and Eloise doing two different performances and assimilations at the same time. That's very interesting to me. But seeing two halves of a couple both have the same weakness, it's sort of like, well, if you're being an imposter and you're being an imposter, then who's flying the plane? Like, that's kind of what it feels like. But we're going to come back to Eloise and Cressida. Carey, what are your thoughts? Are you buying the romance between them?
Well, here's the thing about the romance between them. I guess the question is, it's like, what's the primary impetus for it, right? And sort of we know in this world, in this society, it's like, hey, and I think Penelope said it's been 3 seasons for her, so this is
Mhm.
like essentially make or break time, right? And she's not stupid, so she realizes, particularly based on her family situation, that this is like something that she has to do, and she's smart enough to know how she needs to go about it, right? So for me, that sort of explains the glow up to a great degree. I think the bigger thing is like, is Colin interested in her because of that glow up, which I don't necessarily feel like is the strongest impetus. I think it's sort of the same thing that sort of happened in seasons past, is that someone finally sort of gets to a situation where they see someone that they're interested in, and then the possibility is that person is not going to be available to them anymore.
Mhm.
And then there's that sort of like anxiety of like, hey, certainly there are feelings and they've known each other and been friends for a long time, but then it's sort of like, hey, it's now or never. And that's sort of baked into what this society is about, particularly for women. And then for him, it's sort of like this deadline of, if I don't act now, then I will never have a chance.
Mhm.
So I think that's the sort of bigger impetus for them, before, particularly for him, moving forward with this relationship. And I think everyone in this show during the entire time has been, I don't know if duplicitous is the right word, but they've obviously understood what the game is, right? And it's a question of how you play the game. And then it comes down to how much of it can you stomach, how much of it sits well with you, and how much of it can you not deal with.
Mhm.
For me, the bigger thing, the biggest hurdle for their relationship is going to be obviously when Colin realizes that she is Lady Whistledown, and
Yeah.
it's like, is that going to be a make or break? So um, long story short, it if they didn't have the history that they've had on this show for 3 seasons, and it feels like longer, like they've been friends forever. So you at least have that. It's not like it came out of nowhere. But I think in terms of the circumstances of, hey, I need to act now for her, came up because she's 3 seasons in, and for him, it's like either now or never, because she has a
Mhm.
suitor who he probably never thought that she would have. So he could have been like laissez-faire with her because he didn't have that built-in deadline. So they both have it now. Um, and so, bottom line is they're together, and I kind of dig it. But yeah, there's still some things that they're going to have to overcome if this is going to be happily ever after.
Yeah, the pacing is interesting to see it in contrast with the book because you're absolutely right that we see the main conflict. It's going to be that he finds out she's Lady Whistledown, and how are they going to handle that, and are they going to change what they do in the book regarding that? And it'll be really interesting. They've set us up to expect a blow up from him. They've set us up to expect they're now attached, based on reputation and perhaps other things. There's a theory going around that she could possibly become pregnant before he finds out that she's Lady Whistledown, and then they have to deal with, suddenly he hates her and also she's pregnant. We could see what happens there. So there's a lot of conflict to be had in the second half. That in perspective, there's almost less conflict in the first half. It was just sort of like this conflict of, I'm gonna, try to get a husband because I gotta, move out of my parents' house. Okay, well, that was the conflict in every other season before that, is trying to get a husband or trying to get a wife or whatever the case may be. And I gotta, fit into society slightly so I can, get somebody slightly above the loser line, or, however they want to portray it. And she had Lord, what was it, Dudley, whatever. Personally, that was a smart choice. She knows it, I know it, y'all know it. That was a smart choice. That was who she should have gone with. And also, if you're going to take an L, if you're going to take an L and get with somebody who's not, maybe the most emotionally available, who thinks they won't fall in love, there is a big difference between somebody saying, I don't think I am emotionally present for love. I don't think I can love. And somebody saying, I can't love you. I am totally emotionally available. I totally want to date. I totally like all these, whatever. I don't want to date you. Lord Dudley, whatever the hell he says his name, he was just saying kind of really into plants to an atypical degree in a fun, cool way. And I may or may not fall in love with you. Okay, everybody says they're not going to fall in love until they fall in love. That's a Regency trope anyways. That's when a guy in a Regency novel is I don't think I can fall in love in 1 year, out the other. Give it 2 chapters. He will. Okay, so there's that. We're programmed to not take that seriously, and I don't take that seriously. But let's pretend it is true. Who cares? He's saying that about everybody. Colin was saying, I can play with everybody. I just don't like Penelope. I can't love Penelope. That's rude, and there should not be any coming back from it, in my humble opinion.
I am always really glad when we agree chapter and verse. That is exactly how I feel. Because it's not necessarily if she had ended up with Lord Dudley, that it would have been this sweeping romance, or I have any intention of believing that, because obviously she wasn't going to end up with him anyway. But I agree, he wasn't saying I couldn't love you, or he wasn't even doing the season 1 thing that the Duke did, where he's I can never have children. He wasn't saying it as a never. He's saying, it's not really what I'm looking for. If it happens, it happens, but I just need a wife because I have estates and responsibilities that necessitate a wife. But I really want to go play with plants out somewhere.
And that's literally what she was saying too, is she was saying if it happens, it happens, but she's not counting on it. She wants to do her writing, and as long as it's a nice person, then cool. And I think that if they're 2 nice people and they're treating each other nice, love will come. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sound like an 85-year-old grandma who believes in matchmaking, but I am an 85-year-old grandma, and I do believe in matchmaking, and I do think 2 nice people under the right circumstances can learn to love each other. However, in the interest of representing all points of view, I'm going to read what Stormy says in the chat, because she has a much softer heart, and I think she's on Carey's side. She says, Penelope doesn't have the family and money to get to choose to be a spinster like Eloise. Penelope wants to be away from her cruel family. There's no money for a dowry for her because her dad gambled, all of that. And Stormy says she wants love for Penelope, not some dude who will marry her and leave for years. Plus, his treks were dangerous, and Penelope would most likely end up a widow. Stormy says someone said he would go off for potentially 3 years and come back, having, her potentially have, kids with Colin at that point. It could be all kinds of questionable circumstances. So Stormy wants absolute guaranteed love for Penelope. And Stormy, that's a very kind perspective. And I do think you're going to get what you want. And I do think once we see the second half, you'll be right. But right now, in the middle, it feels like Penelope is into somebody, into the one person who said that he was not interested, and it makes my heart hurt for her.
I mean, we all know what we really want, right? Are we on the same page of what we really want for Penelope? Or am I going to have to say this out loud? I mean, we want Penelope to be with Eloise, right? That's what we want, right?
Okay, yes, yes. However, a new side plot for Eloise has presented itself. Cause like I was all on the like, okay, Eloise and Penelope, like it seemed like almost one-sided though. It seemed like Eloise was more into Penelope, and that's why she got her feelings hurt more than Penelope. And that's also why Eloise was like, wait, I thought we were gonna be spinsters together. Like, were we not gonna be spinsters together, guys? Like, was that not the plan? Did nobody take that as seriously as me? Like, I thought we were all ignoring men. And then like the other girls in the room were like, no, Eloise, like we weren't ignoring men. That was just like a joke we said that one time over margaritas, but like we all actually are like totally into men. And Eloise was like, oh, that was just me. Never mind, guys. Yeah, no, I was joking too, actually. That's Eloise's vibe. That's what she's bringing to the table. Penelope's bringing a bit of a desperate vibe to the table, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but Penelope's bringing a vibe to the table where she's not even like considering her sexuality. And I don't mean that in terms of like Penelope's not considering whether she likes girls or whether she likes guys, but Penelope's not considering whether or not she would even like love or be attracted to her partner. She's sort of like, I'm not going to, when she was talking to the dressmaker person, she was sort of like, I'm not going to be unreasonable about who I'm ending up with. Like, she's not making any pretense of sort of like love or grandeur or being attracted to somebody or somebody being attracted to her. It's just all practicality. So I don't even think that's even a question for her. In her mind, you know, in this world, we've not been led to believe that like, well, I guess didn't he know some like gay people? So maybe gay people exist. I don't know. But in Penelope's mind, that's not even like on her radar. But for Eloise, I think Eloise kind of is sort of trying to like feel out like, okay, who's on the same page as me? Like, you know, whatever. And I think we see that with her and Cressida. Because with Cressida, and this is where we're getting onto my favorite topic. So let me cross my legs, sit up, and tap this mic. With Cressida, she's your classic, like, forced to act like super, I'm sorry to use this terminology, but like bitchy and straight, when I think that there's something going on there. When Cressida's dad reacted to Eloise like calling on her, that was very much like, this has been an ongoing problem and you're not doing what you're told. It kind of is giving that like Cressida has had like girl space friends before that weren't necessarily having that space between girl and friends. You see her attachment to Eloise, where there's this tentative, like, are we on the same page? Are we not on the same page? Wait, are you still kind of pining after your friend? That just doesn't feel all just friends to me. In conclusion, both Cressida and Eloise are gay. Do I think Cressida and Eloise are going to be the pairing that ends up together? I don't know, maybe not, but I think there's a lot of like said, unsaid stuff. For example, with Cressida trying to go after Lord Debley or whatever his name is, I think she actually likes the fact that he wouldn't be around, that he would be gone for years at a time, that he's not looking for love, whatever. I don't think Cressida's looking for love. I think she's looking for some kind of stability outside of her parents' house. And as soon as she was there, she'd move Eloise in low key while he's off hunting plants in Antarctica. I feel like that's plainly written in the text. I'm not reading into anything at all. Okay, what are your all's thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I will make an addition to that because I've also seen some discourse about whether it be okay or justified to put Eloise in a relationship, whether it would be with a man or a woman, online. And I think there's a lot of people that are getting it twisted about how she feels about love and marriage and relationships anyway. She resents being told that she has to. She resents being like forced into the machine, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very much like, if there's a rule, I'm going to criticize it because I want to know why there's a rule rather than because I am opposed to the ethos of the rule. And therefore, I don't think she's against love. I think she could fall in love. I think she even had the initial feelings of love with Theo, but or at least interest.
Yeah.
However, I could see I could see them exploring it and basically saying Eloise is bi, and however they want to deal with that, they'll deal with it. But I definitely agree with you that Cressida is definitely into Eloise. She saw Lord Doubling as a, this is an easy answer for me, and then I can kind of live my life and do whatever I want
Right.
with hopefully Eloise. And I think Eloise doesn't really have it clued in yet that that's how Cressida feels, or even how that she might feel. I think Eloise, for all that she's really cerebral and thinks about a lot of things, she doesn't have any self awareness at all. She has very intellectual thoughts about everything but herself a lot of the
Mhm.
time. And that's the whole reason she understands why Penelope had to say something bad about Penelope in the Lady Whistledown's letters, but she can't figure out why she couldn't say something, she had to say something mean about Eloise herself.
Mhm.
And it's not until Eloise gains some self-awareness that all of these pieces of forgiveness and self-identity are really going to come into focus for her.
Eloise this season's gonna slap. I know people are not going to be tolerant for her, be tolerant towards her because she is a difficult woman. I love difficult women, but I'm not gonna pretend that they're not difficult. And she is, in my opinion, I think I fully agree with you that Eloise is very like bisexual coded, and there's nothing romance fans hate more than somebody who's bisexual. So she's just all cards are stacked against her. She's abrasive and bisexual. She can't win. Um, but I think she and Cresta are really cute together. To kind of echo the point of her being difficult, Stormy says she can't stand Eloise. Stormy, I'm not holding it against you. You like the nice ones, and somebody's gotta. She also says I could see Cresta being lesbian. The writers said there would be an LGBTQIA or something show, and um, I don't think it's a main character, so it fit. Yeah, I hear like rumors that they can't change who any of the 8 siblings end up with, and that's like okay, maybe, but also restrictive for no reason, and also 8 siblings and not one of them is gay. That's sci-fi, not romance. But okay, anyways, what do you want to see in the second half of season 3?
I know what I want to see in the second half of season 3.
Take the mic.
I absolutely easily want to see more of
Penelope, the
crap.
sweet.
No,
Oh.
no, 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 no. I'm an older dude, so I've got to go with the older women. And I'm blanking on like the Dower Bridgerton's names. No, that's
Oh,
not
Violet and Lady
yeah,
Danbury's story. I can't believe we didn't even touch on that. I'm so excited.
yeah. So yeah, when I saw them talking together and started like, seeing like sparks on screen, I'm like, yeah, I need to see absolutely more of that. Absolutely. Um,
It kind of rebalances
also,
the scales as well because Lady Danbury slept with Lady Violet's dad. So now, sort of, it's like PEMDAS.
wait, whoa, 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 hold up. When did that happen?
Did
Wait,
you
is this?
wait? That was a major spoiler. Did you or did you not watch Queen Charlotte?
I have not.
What?
I thought you were gonna tell me that was. I thought you were gonna tell me that was from the book. And I was like, how the hell did I? I was like, I know I haven't missed that.
My bad. Forget you heard that? Question mark.
Well, here's the thing. I'm all about the journey, not so much the destination. So
That's
that'll be fine. That'll be fine.
100%. You're
So
gonna love
yeah.
Queen Charlotte. It's my favorite.
So
Mhm.
I'm absolutely looking forward to that. What else do I want to see? What was it? It was. I'll tell you who I'd love to see more of, and I want to see how they want to do it. But Will and Alice, I really sort of want to see
Mhm.
how they sort of um, melt into being these dads and moms of a Baron, right? Because
Yeah.
you can see where like their old life is and how their new life is, and the battle and conflict there. And so I always love seeing more of Will, which is strange the fact that he's become basically a baron or the father of a baron, and Simon hasn't so much as dropped him a line saying, "Hey, that's pretty damn cool." but
The
I'm not going to go there.
the scene where they slept apart from each other because they were told that's what they had to do was like the most I felt something in the first half of season 3 overall. That was the most
So,
romance the first half of season 3 had.
so those, I mean, I may be missing something, but I mean, those are the two things for sure. Like I said, I sort of lean toward the older folks because of my age. And I do have a question or a comment about age that I want to get to later on. I don't want to hog up the conversation, but I got a question about that later on.
Go ahead. What is it?
So before, I never Googled anything about the show before I decided to binge the first two, 3 seasons, right? And so it was, I never had any sort of feeling or understanding of how old these people were supposed to be. When I say these people, whether I'm talking about the suitors or the
Mhm,
debutantes, I didn't have any sort of concrete idea of how old they were. My expectation was always, well, they're probably young. I'm thinking
mhm,
like 15, 16, whatever the
mhm.
case may be.
Yeah.
So with that being my understanding or expectation, there were some pretty graphic sex scenes that obviously happened, particularly in the first season.
Mhm.
And honestly, at the moment, I did not know how I was supposed to feel about it. I mean,
Mhm.
and so I say that I did get a little bit, it did ease my conscience a little bit. I think I Googled like after I watched to basically say how old were like each of these people supposed to be in the seasons that they were in. And
Mhm,
so Daphne, as an example, was supposed to be, and it may be wrong, but I think I Googled it and said she was like 20,
mhm,
21.
mhm.
Which made me feel a little bit better because quite
Yeah.
honestly, and the way she acted, how naive she appeared to be for that time and for her station, she felt much younger. And
Mhm.
so that made some of those things difficult and hard to watch. And I'm just wondering if you guys have more history in this Regency era stuff than I do, but did any of that stuff strike you, or was it sort of par for the course?
I actually wish the show had leaned into that more because
Mhm.
the books are they're your standard, romance books, but in the hands of somebody like Shonda, I trust like dark or difficult themes to be handled with, the chaos and the drama and the, monologuing that it deserves. And that was a struggle you heard us probably talk about in season 2, where age really comes into play with the two sisters. In the books, Edwina is just barely old enough to go out in society. I think she's supposed to be, 16 barely. And
17 maybe.
yeah, 16, 17. And Kate is 21 or something to that effect. But Kate feels like an old maid at that point who's just there to look after her sister despite being barely a child. You know what I mean? And I really wanted them to lean into that because in the books, there's even hints of kind of like creepy people going after Edwina, guys who went years not being able to get a girl off the market and are ready to just, snatch the first young girl who's in town. And I wanted them to kind of lean into it. They don't have to say pedophilia, they don't have to say any of that, but just kind of like, this is a dark thing that, like, the Sharma family's whole fate rode on the fact that they needed to like sell off their 16-year-old to the highest bidder. Likewise for Daphne, the Bridgerton family is portrayed as having like the money and stability to not put her out on the market at like 16, 17, whatever. But at some point, even though they delayed her being put out, and being presented to the queen and basically being on the marriage market, they delayed it as long as they could. She still has the fate of like all of her kid, brothers and sisters or whatever on her shoulders that she still has to marry well, despite being barely a child, So there's a lot of pressure on these objectively young girls. And I really wanted them to lean into that more, but they didn't, both in terms of, they didn't do anything gutsy like I wanted them to do and cast actresses and actors of the age of the people. So we actually look at this and are like, oh, that's a 16-year-old. This is somewhat repulsive. No, they cast like late 20s and just make them look younger, so we're not repulsed by it. like, don't be shy. Repulse us. If you're going to talk about this 16-year-old being put on the market, cast a 16-year-old who looks 16 and make us be like, actually, no, this like feels weird and looks weird and I don't like it. But they haven't done that. So like, yes, age is a factor here. Yes, they've aged them up a bit in the show just to in my opinion, just to avoid the like difficulty of it. But I almost wish they had it. I almost wish they'd grapple with it and like make us like kind of take a step back and be like, ooh, okay, no, I don't like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've talked about it several times before that like the age is a funny thing. And just for like the Regency context, the come out was not necessarily the showing to the Queen as a debutante wasn't necessarily at a specific age by rule, but in Regency time, it would kind of start somewhere between like 15, 16 would be the earliest. And then like and that would be if you're of a lower standing, would typically be, you'd be put out earlier for the very reason of like, we need to get you out of here so we don't have to pay for you anymore. And then the higher class young ladies would come out at 18. And if you weren't out by 18, there was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
These have like fundamentally shifted forward. So they all feel like they're at least 20, 21
Mm-hmm.
and whatever. And it also feels very much more like at that year, you have to, it's expected of you to come out, whether you go and actually pursue marriage, you
Mm-hmm.
can wait a few years. Like we've seen several characters do, but like it was, it's presented more as a rule that you have to be presented. And that's not actually how it worked from my understanding. I could be wrong, but that's the Regency rule.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the casting, yeah, I wish they would have done the darker stuff, and actually had the younger people. Not to say
At
that the
least
cast
for
isn't
Edwina.
great.
At least for Edwina.
Yes,
For
at least a
Daphne,
handful of them.
for Daphne and for Penelope, totally fine. Do what you want to do, whatever. But for Edwina and Kate, I really had hoped they'd be like bold, like gross us out.
Which, like, I'm sure Cammie, you know this, but Carey, just like a little fun fact, Nicola was 37 when she filmed this season. Who
Penelope,
plays Penelope?
the person who plays Penelope, is 37.
You know what this reminds me of? It look 37?
She's 38 now, I
Yes.
believe. She's
Yeah.
she's
And
2
like,
years away from
freaking
40. That's how good people look when they don't starve themselves. She just looks young because everybody else in the industry is thriving off of like 300 calories a day and a vape.
it not to bring Flash into the situation, but good Lord, I'm bringing Flash into the situation. It's like the actress who plays their daughter is freaking older than Candace Patton, right?
Uh-huh.
But she doesn't look it. It's freaking insane. I would have never guessed. I would have probably said 26, 27.
Yeah.
Good Lord,
Mhm.
man. Those are some
Yep.
pretty good genes.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And she, like, even with like the close-ups with like Nicola, like when you look at like the interviews like off screen and stuff where it's just like Getty images or whatever genetics she's got going on, flawless skin, not a wrinkle in sight. She looks great.
hmm
And quite honestly, I know I mentioned Daphne as my example when we were talking about ages and that sort of thing. But quite honestly, it was Penelope that was the carriage scene, man. I again, my thinking is okay, even
She's
even
nearly
in
40,
universe,
Carrie. It's okay.
I know, I know, but even in universe, I was
Yeah.
thinking she's got to be like what? I'm thinking in universe she's probably 16, 17, even in season 3. That's my
Yeah.
thought. That's what my
In
head
in
was.
universe, she has to be about 21
Yeah,
maximum.
yeah.
I think
But
she could be
I
19 youngest, 21 oldest.
19.
yeah,
Yeah.
but my head was skewing younger, and so yeah, that was another interesting and difficult scene to
Yeah.
watch. But it was done. Back to your point about because I did do a little bit of research and realized that like her glow up, like to your point, was based on hey, let's have this character lose some weight, and there you go. I was incredibly glad to see that they did, and I have read some things about obviously how body positive is the phrase I'm looking for.
Uh-huh.
That this was making someone um, like her is going to sound like condescending, but essentially making this character who didn't have to lose weight to be appealing
Mhm.
Making her an object of lust and desire and all those things is actually a good thing, even if my head was saying, "Good Lord, is she 15 or 16?" But beyond that, I think it still sends a better message that no, she did not have to drop 2 stones to be attractive and alluring to someone like Colin Bridgerton. So I dig that, if nothing else.
And Colin Bridgerton should count his lucky stars that he gets to have the good fortune of even being in the same carriage as her, much less laying a finger on her or in her, as it were. Kate, what do you want to see in the second half of season two?
I'm so
Season
glad you asked.
season three.
So my favorite arc of the first part of season 3 was actually Francesca. I
Ooh,
wanted more Francesca.
I
I
was waiting
loved
for you to bring her up.
Francesca. I knew you were gonna say that because I feel like I loved Francesca and I wanted more of her. I think her story's more interesting. I think it's more fascinating. I nearly went and picked up the book. Haven't done it yet. But I when you said like it's the most romantic moment for me in this entire half of the season was when he rescored the music for her.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that's beautiful. That's so lovely. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see more. I actually do know her story, even if I haven't read the book. It's gonna be so much fun. Nothing bad ever happens.
Never, never.
Never. I have a question for you both.
Okay.
Ranking both seasons, and we can include Queen Charlotte
Okay.
as well as relationships. How are we feeling that ranking stacking up?
My current ranking is Queen Charlotte is number
Mhm.
one, Daphne and Simon is number two, and yet to be determined whether Penelope and Colin or Kate and Anthony sit at three and four. But so far, I think Penelope and Colin will exceed Kate and Anthony. So Penelope and Colin three, Kate and Anthony four. Just in terms of like the main franchises. Obviously, if we're getting into like side relationships, throw the whole thing out because I've got a bunch of side relationships that would go different. Carrie, what about you?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, as far if we're just ranking this primarily on relationships, I mean, it's hard to go against Daphne and Simon. That just felt magical, right? And obviously that probably had a lot to do with that was my first introduction to it,
Mm-hmm.
probably like everyone else. So it felt magical and fantastical, even though there were some interesting
Mm-hmm.
twists and turns that got them to where they were. So that's certainly number one. Obviously, I have not seen Queen Charlotte yet, so I can't say where that ranks. I know, and here's the thing, right? I went back and listened and watched you guys talk about season 2 and some of the issues that you guys had with Kate and Anthony. So here's what I will say about that. I only watched the first episode, then I like basically did a recap for all the rest of them, and then watched the final one.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't, I'm not as cozy with season 2 as I am with season 1 and season 3. But there was a slight moment of my being that had me liking Kate more than I liked Daphne. Maybe some of that had to do with age. I don't know, but that's certainly. Long story short, I'm going to say that they are probably three because I do want to see what happens with Penelope and Colin. So right now, just based on potential, they are number 2. And obviously this is subject to change based on what Queen Charlotte does. But yeah, it's Daphne and Simon, then it's Penelope and Colin, and then it is Kate and Anthony. Um, and so so it was Benedict who had the relationship with Sienna, right?
Mm-hmm.
The opera singer. I
Yep.
I, I really they're my wild card. I kind of like them together, even though I knew that was never going to happen. I know I'm strange, but I kind of dug it.
It'll be interesting to see whether Benedict gets his story next, whether Eloise gets her story next, or whether they have a shared season.
Mhm. Um, Carrie, with you saying that you liked Kate more than Anthony or more than Daphne, I think this might come as a bit of a surprise for Cammie, but where my ranking is, if we're talking about couples, not seasons, but couples, it
Uh-huh.
still goes with Queen Charlotte because I don't have to make any exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is Kate and Anthony. Kate and Anthony
Okay.
this season are delightful. I like them this season. I
Good.
don't like their story. I don't like how they got there, but now that they're together, their chemistry is amazing, their presence is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And as a character, I do still enjoy Kate. I just don't like how much they had changed from the book to the show, and that really did color how I feel about the season.
I like Kate better than I like Daphne and Penelope.
Yes.
Kate
And
as a person, I like her better than either of the two female leads. I
yeah,
don't like Kate better than Charlotte, but I like Kate better than Daphne or Penelope.
yeah, I agree there. And then following Kate and Anthony, it's actually Simon and Daphne, and then Colin and Penelope for me.
Looking at the chat, and Stormy says one of the reasons she likes Benedict is because of Luke Thompson. She just doesn't really care for Benedict's love story. She points out that Nicholas had to deal with body shaming from fans, which is sad and also kind of crazy. Like, what kind of fat phobia blinders do y'all have on because she's stunning? Anyways, she has a question for us. She says, do you think the Lady Arnold chick that Benedict hooks up with will be Sophie's stepmother? So to contextualize this, Benedict's love interest in the book is a woman named Sophie. I'll just go ahead and say that it's already canon that Cressida's real first name is the first name of Sophie's stepmother. And we did have that moment where Cressida's father said if she can't bag a man, he's going to have her marry one of his old friends. So I'm just going to go ahead and guess that he may follow through on that promise. And she's going to become a stepmother. Yeah. And I'm just going to go ahead and guess she's not going to be happy about becoming a stepmother and may not be the nicest stepmother. In fact, some might call her an evil stepmother. I could see that in the cards for Cressida based on her first name and vibes.
Yes. I just theory and evidence-based agree. I will also, however, footnote say I really do like whatever her name is. I cannot remember.
Araminta.
Yes. She's showing up at the air balloon thing and talking engineering and everything. It really spoke to me. I loved that. Yeah, her. I loved that scene. I liked her. Just like informationally, I watched these with my mom and we both sat up.
Good luck.
We both sat up and yeah. We both sat up and we both immediately went, "Oh, I like her." But yeah, watching it with my mom is a choice.
Watching it with your mom. Just the idea of like watching this with parents in the room just gave me like full body shudder of fear.
It's not as bad as when I watched Game of Thrones with my dad.
Goodness, you're
so here's another age question. I forget her name. Is Lady, what was it? Lady crap.
The one that Benedict is with?
Yeah, the balloon lady.
Lady Arnold? Question mark.
All right. So is it my sort of like bias or something? But in the show, she feels like and looks like she's supposed to be playing a character who's, got some experience, got some and so she plays older, but I think I Googled the actress, and the actress who's playing her is fairly young. And that's sort of like a difference of what I've normally seen on here. So I'm like, okay, she looks like she could be in her 40s, cougar territory, and I'm like, no, she's like, I want to say 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
And Benedict is probably fully in his 30s. And that's like the whole thing. That's like, why doesn't this show kind of play with that more and point that out more? That like, it's seen as Benedict being with like a cougar because he's with a widow. But like women in their late 20s could very well have been married for a decade, have 3 kids and be widowed and be the same age as a guy who has like Peter Pan syndrome. That's like, no, mama, I couldn't possibly think of marrying this season. I still have several several seasons to go before I could possibly think of a wife. Meanwhile, this woman's lived like 3 entire lifetimes and they're the same age. Like, I really wish they'd play with that discrepancy more, because I think that that's something that like seems fairly relevant to modern dating. Like, there's like a common, thread in like Western dating. I can't speak to it. I don't know what the hell y'all have going on, but it seems like that's a common thread. Like, at least half of the population having some sort of Peter Pan syndrome, and then half of the population being like, well, I froze my eggs 7 years ago, but sure, yeah, no, I couldn't possibly think of marriage. Like, it's just, I think that would be relevant. Be bold, Shonda. Play with it. Scare some people. Step on some toes. Kate covering her face. I'm right.
You're right. You
I mean,
are.
what the hell does grandma know? But, that's what I'm saying. Anyways, we are almost out of time, but I do want to get to our woman of the weeks. Now, I know we all watched some stuff this week as well, but nothing could possibly be as important as Bridgerton, of course. But let's take a few minutes and go through our woman of the week. And Kate, do you want to go first on your woman of the week? You can say no.
All right. No.
No, you do not. Okay. I'll go first on my woman of the week. Now, you'll all be shocked to know that I watch reality shows, but not all of them are trash and unrespectable. I love Jeopardy because I am an 85-year-old grandmother. And recently, there was a whole Jeopardy Masters tournament of like all the greatest of the greats. It was just fantastic viewing. If you like watching like smart, eccentric people do what they're great at, which I do. And there was a woman on the Jeopardy Masters tournament who makes it quite far, no spoilers. Her name is Victoria. She is just an absolute joy to watch. Every word that comes out of her mouth is just so validating and enriching, and it's just the loveliest person. So my woman of the week is Victoria from the Jeopardy Masters tournament. And if you need some lovely background noise as you go about your day, I cannot recommend that tournament highly enough. Just absolutely fantastic. All right, Kate, you already passed. I'm going to go to Carey next. Carey, woman of the
Okay.
week.
All right, so here is my woman of the week. I'll try to make this as concise as I can. But I think I had let you guys know the last time we spoke that I have been watching the Dead Boy Detectives, which is a DC property, which is essentially sort of like a supernatural meets Scooby-Doo type of show. It's basically about these two dead guys who, instead of going on into the afterlife, have made it their um, Dead's work to try and help ghosts solve mysteries so they can in turn go on to whatever afterlife they need to get to. So one of their better friends, one of their sort of like Scooby Doo teammates, is a medium who can see dead people who was once possessed by a demon. That's a whole story into itself. But she also has a next door neighbor who had an unfortunate run-in with some evil, villainous, devious, fun-loving sprites who nearly killed her, and because of that, she too, because of her near-death experience, can see dead people. And she's been ensnared into this entire Scooby-Doo gang. Her name is Nico, and if you've ever seen the Deadpool movies, imagine Yukio, who is Negasonic Teenage Warhead's bestie girlfriend. Imagine her seeing dead people, and you sort of get the vibe. So anyway, our two Dead Boy detectives had to go on a case where they were, quite honestly, you would not suspect that dead people could find themselves in peril, but indeed they were. So who comes to the rescue? How effective she was is not the point, but coming to their rescue is, you guessed it, our favorite Nico, banging pots and pans, running to their rescue because she had read somewhere that one way to rid a place of evil spirits and ghosts and goblins and ghouls is to claim pots and pans. And so she came running to their rescue in the most absurd and fantastical way you can imagine. And we should all have friends and day ones like that. So Nico is my woman of the week.
That is so cute. I loved everything about that. What a good choice. Kate, are you are
Okay.
you are you ready?
I think I'm ready now. So I was going to say something about all creatures again, blah 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 blah, but I've been talking about it on Twitter all week, by the way, and loving that conversation. Um, so instead, I will talk about the other show I watched this week, which was Renegade Nell. I haven't watched the whole thing, just the first half. But the main character is Nell Jackson, who is also whimsical and mystical and magical, set in forgetting the exact year, but the reign of Queen Anne.
Okay.
And she is recently widowed. This Nell is recently widowed and comes back home and finds her family's town being terrorized by the kind of local magistrate's son. And she actually has like a magical ability, and you find out what that is, or she's on a journey to figure out what that is, why she has it. Um, but she beats him up real bad and then pays the consequences forever after. It's really fun, and I will say I think the visuals and the fighting are both really creative and really well done. Just for like the CGI as well as the stunt choreography.
Mhm.
But her as a character is also really interesting because it's not quite anti-hero, but she's
Mhm.
not a typical hero. She isn't necessarily always on the side of doing it because it's the right thing to do, but she's doing stuff more because she's protective of herself and others, and that just ends up placing her on the right side. Though she does have some amount of moral compass, and she does go decide to save people because she kind of owes them one.
Mhm.
But I think she's an interesting character, and it's really surprising and like original. I think it's really good. So Nell Jackson.
I love that. I will also say at the end of all of the lives, I always say like Kate and Carrie's information's in the description down below, and you should go like talk to them about whatever we talked about or like pick a fight with them about their opinions or whatever. And I happen to be a lurker, and I happen to know that Steph took us up on that offer and has been chatting with Kate about all creatures, great and small. And it is extremely heartwarming. I happen to have known Steph for about a decade at this point because we were in the Suits fandom together. So that has made this little Grinch's heart grow like 15 sizes. So Kate and Carrie's information is in the description down below. Take me up on
Mm.
talking to them about all of the things that we talked about this week and all of the stuff that got left in the notes because Bridgerton has occupied all of our thoughts. I and Kate and Carey will be back here. I think it's what is it, June 19th? It's like in 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks to talk about Bridgerton Part 2. Season 3, Part 2. It'll be after the final 4 episodes drop. They will have been out for like 6 days before we talk about it, so there'll be plenty of time to like not be spoiled. And I'm so excited to like eat my words and be like, never mind, this was the best one ever, and I actually love everything about it. And what I just kidding, I probably won't do that. Thank you guys for chatting with me about Bridgerton Season 3, Part 1. See you for more drama in a couple weeks. Bye.
Sure. See, who would
Bye.
have guessed I'd have been here?